Welcome all, welcome all. We'll allow for people to continue to filter in here for the next 30 seconds and get situated, and then we'll begin. Thank you for joining us today. All right, well, this is always exciting. Welcome to the fourth Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Community Conversation Series led by the Renton Chamber of Commerce. My name is Sean Greenlee, board member and DEI consultant for the Chamber. I'm here in collaboration with Diane Dobson, your Chamber CEO. I first want to thank the City of Renton, Preeti Sridhar, and Benita Horn for their partnership and ongoing support of this program. I also want to acknowledge Rock Project Management Services, Renton Technical College, and the Kent Chamber of Commerce for their continuous engagement and support. As we frequently acknowledge in today's complex and continuously evolving environment, social issues and inequities are becoming ever more evident. Here at the Chamber and in partnership with the City, we constantly strive to support our member organizations and community. We seek to provide additional resources, community collaboration, and shared mentorship as we look to tackle these complex issues. We must work together and leverage each other's knowledge, while acknowledging that many of us are operating under resource constraints. Creating an inclusive environment with improved employee engagement is critical to success, both in the workplace and for improved business results. Leading today's forum will once again be Benita Horn, Inclusion and Equity Consultant for the City of Renton. The focus of her consulting practice is organizational development through a social justice lens. Most of her clients are government entities and nonprofit organizations. Benita has also moderated many forums about race in the Seattle area. In this session, we will look to share insights into how diversity and inclusion work impacts small businesses and chamber organizations. We'll hear from Karen Wilkins-Mickey, Vice President, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Seattle Seahawks, and 3 esteemed Chamber of Commerce CEOs. We want to encourage this session to be an open forum where you, the community, ask questions and share insights. We will be monitoring the chat box should you have questions or comments. And finally, many of us are at different places on this journey. Knowing how and where to start is a great first step. We're all in this together. Benita, I pass it over to you.
Thank you, Sean. It's just a pleasure to be here. You know, in the work that I do as a consultant, one of the greatest, not only challenges, but opportunities is simply helping the client groups that I work with normalize conversations about race, racism, and all forms of oppression. And so we hope to be able to do that in Renton so that we're not fearful that we're walking on eggshells if we bring the subject up, or we're not fearful that we have different understandings of what the terminologies mean. So it's our intent at each of these sessions to provide you with some resources, not only in the content of the session, but resources that you can access later. And keeping in mind that, you know, in Renton, that the Chamber's membership consists of a lot of small businesses. And so we're hoping to be able to provide you with resources that can be more of a grab and go. In other words, as Sean mentioned, we are all on this journey and we're all in different places. And one of the things that I strongly believe is that none of us should have to begin from ground zero, but that through the generosity of sharing, we can learn from each other, share resources with each other, share lessons learned with each other. And that's one of the things that we hope to do. So our big picture vision is that through these community conversations, that we create an environment that allows all members and employees to thrive and reach their true potential while achieving business results and objectives, and to envision a community free from bias and systemic oppression, where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. So that's where we're going. So with that, Sean, do you want to introduce our opening speaker?
Yes, I'm honored to. As we mentioned before, we're privileged to have a special guest with us today. Karen Wilkins-Mickey has recently been welcomed to the Seattle Seahawks organization as the first Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Karen brings over 20 years of DEI experience, which extends across a variety of industries from financial, technology, and aviation. Most recently, she was the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Alaska Airlines. We are truly grateful and honored to Karen for offering to share her perspectives and insights to our community. And with that, Karen, I pass it over to you.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I'm in a hotel lobby because my daughter plays basketball at IMG Academy in Florida, and I'm here to see the last of her games. So so you were talking about the bed in the background. So this is the lobby. These are the doors near the conference area. So anyway, thank you for having me. This picture is so fun. I remember I did my photo shoot and I wanted to have a fun photo. I had a bunch of serious ones, which you could see on LinkedIn and other places, but I wanted something fun. So when I got the job, my husband for Christmas gave me this sweatshirt. And so my whole family got the sweatshirt and we all wore it to take a photo shoot, kind of announcing my new role. I'm really, really excited to be in this position for several reasons. So I've been doing this work for a very, very long time. 20 years, I've been in HR and staffing for more than that. And, it's amazing. I know you're thinking to yourself, how is that possible? She's like 30. I know. But I've been doing this a really, really long time. And it's kind of interesting. I sort of fell into it. And if any of you on the call are in D&I, you fall into it and you can't get back out. So this is where you live and where you stay and breathe. And I'm so happy that this path has happened for me because it truly is it's like the thing, it called me. This is something that I didn't realize I needed in my life. And so, people typically will ask me, how did you get started? Did something bad happen to you and you just want to go on this journey to fix people and make them treat you right? And I said, no, actually, I grew up in New York City. It was a mosaic of cultures. I grew up around everything and everybody. And I didn't even know what this thing about diversity even was until I went away to college. And I found myself not only being a New Yorker, having a really thick accent in Northern California, where there were absolutely no other Black people. So I was Black. I also had this horrible, very, very thick accent that no one could understand. And everything was against me. And what I realized at that moment is, oh my gosh, this is what difference feels like. And I didn't think about that growing up in New York City at all. But there I am, in this community for school. And I had this opportunity to either leave or stay and deal with it. And I decided to stay and deal with it. And I could have dealt with it in a bad way or a good way. I chose to educate and inform. And so I educated people that called me the N-word. I educated people that called me colored. I told them no, colored is crayons, not people. I educated people and they teased me about my accent. I was like, I'm from New York, but here's the thing. I changed my accent to fit into my environment. And I regret that till this day. I regret that and I didn't realize I didn't realize what I had done until I was giving a talk with some emerging leaders. And they just wanted to know about my journey. And I mentioned this and I said, oh my gosh, you know what I just realized? And they were like, what? I said, I just assimilated. I got rid of something that's my true identity. It's one of the first things I say. I'm from New York City. It's usually one of the first things up there with the fact that I have my beautiful kids, my husband, and I talk about being from New York. And I got rid of the one thing that identifies me to New York, which is my accent. So it's sort of something that it's hit me sort of more recently. But diversity entered my life only at that stage, when I was in my teens going to college, and then following through, fast forward, my daughter growing up in Bothell. She's growing up in Bothell, Washington. I remember getting a phone call when I used to work at Microsoft. I traveled so much. My husband said, Kira, it's 90 degrees here. And I said, well, okay, make sure she wears a short sleeve shirt and shorts or something to school. And he goes, she won't. And I said, why? He said, because she doesn't want to show her brown skin. I said, excuse me. And at that moment, this was like the first or second grade, and she was experiencing being different at a very much earlier age than I experienced it. I knew I was old enough to understand. She didn't. All she knew is she didn't see herself represented. And so at that moment, hello, her mom does this for a living. We started on the journey. And she is probably the most inclusive teen you can ever meet. And she has a brother who is on the spectrum. So she's extremely amazing as a kid. And she's here. Now she's in this multicultural school with like so many rich cultures. So I'm so happy that she has this experience. But I just wanted to give you that little bit about myself to just kind of let you understand what I'm about. So now fast forward, this is my job. Like I've been doing this. I love it. Why? Because I feel like I can help influence and impact change in companies in a way that's authentic and real. So people don't feel like, oh, it's the diversity person. It's the diversity lady. Like, oh, what is she going to make us do? I feel like it's about the people. And one of the things that I'm good at is people. I understand how to connect. I understand how to listen. And I know what it feels like to be different. I know what it feels like to not fit in. I know what it feels like not to belong. I know what it feels like to be the only one. And so I'm on a mission to make sure that others don't feel that way. You're gonna feel that way, but I can help. And so I really believe that my mission in life is sort of to help people realize their full potential and grow and blossom wherever they are. You don't have to be in diversity, equity, and inclusion to do this good work. You can be right where you sit to do it. Now, one of the things Benita said and Sean around like just having the conversation, 2020 sucked. It was not a good year. It started off where I was completely irrelevant because COVID hit. So all I did was focus on wellness. I was like, well, let me shift to wellness because people are at home. COVID hit, like there's a lot of issues with, people bringing this pain to work because they were essential workers on the airline. They had to be there. They still had to be there, and so I worked on that. And then all of a sudden, George Floyd happened. Ahmaud Arbery happened. Breonna Taylor happened. That's not the first time that happened. But guess what? We were all at home watching, listening, dealing with a pandemic. We saw it, our hearts, we felt it. And bam, the movement, right? It's a movement, not a moment. Everything that we do, this is a movement. And we can't stop. We need to immerse ourselves in the uncomfortable to get comfortable. And, I wasn't comfortable as a teenager telling people that, look, you can't call me that, or you can't say that. I wasn't comfortable, but I needed to speak up to protect myself. Right? And so these conversations have to happen because whether you're a small business that employs other people of color or people from marginalized groups, they are in pain. And I'll tell you this story. I sat there when Ahmaud Arbery died and got killed jogging. I sat there thinking, I have to do something. And I'm going to work every single day acting like that didn't happen. I was like, this is crazy. Like, no one's saying anything to me. I mean, I was virtual, but still, no one's saying anything. No one's talking about it, but this is happening and it's real. And finally, then Breonna Taylor, I'm like, what is going on? Nobody's saying anything. And I was feeling this heavy pain in my heart. Finally, at the end of the week, I decided to tell my leadership team, like, you know what, I have to stop this meeting right now. And they were like, what's going on, Karen? I said, I'm in pain and I can't be my full best self at work right now. And I guarantee that there's a bunch of other people that feel just like me, but don't have a voice to say that. So I'm going to speak on their behalf and say, I'm in pain. So I bet they are, and I need to do something about it. My team immediately was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't be sorry. Let's do something. Let's do something. So immediately I wrote a letter to all of leadership, CEO, everybody, like, look, this is what I'm feeling. We have a lot of Black and brown people at this company that I bet are coming to work every single day, because not only are they dealing with COVID and the pandemic, they're an essential worker, flying planes at the stations, whatever. We've got to reach out and let people know we're here. So I gave them a list of things to do. Those things were not, don't find every Black person and all of a sudden say, are you okay? Don't do that. But what I did say is recognize that you have people working for you that are feeling a certain way, and just have some empathy. Have some empathy for the fact that they could be going through some things, because we're not a monolith. So just because I want certain people to know how I'm feeling, that doesn't mean everybody wants people to know how they're feeling. But you can understand, and you can try to empathize, be compassionate, learn to forgive, understand if they're a little late that day, understand that maybe that there's a reason they went home early, maybe understand that why they're sitting at their desk sad, understand why people are huddled talking with community that is like them, that can understand. Don't just understand it, just kind of have some empathy. So I gave them a list of things to do, but I'll tell you, this year, I've been fighting and doing this a long time. Not just in 2020. It's just, this is the year that people started to listen. My job went from zero relevance to all the relevance that quickly. But that's okay, because we train for this moment. Like, this is what I train for, to do this work. It's sad, but I train for crisis. Like, this is what happens, and then I jump in, and I'm ready to go, because this is what I've been doing all along. It's just that now you're listening to me. And so what I want to say to you, I'm sharing this story to you because I want you to understand that, like, you are all in different places. There's some of you that are like, I totally understand the importance of a conversation. I've watched all the things that there are out there. I've done my unconscious bias. I've watched uncomfortable conversations, with a Black man. I've done my anti-racism training. I've done 21 day racial equity challenge. I have watched Robin DiAngelo. I read the book, White Fragility. I know what white fragility is. I've done privilege walks. I know what white privilege is. I don't get it. I do get it. Wherever you are on the spectrum, you're here listening to me right now. And if you're here listening to me right now, and if you're listening to all the other panelists that are going to come after me, then that's the first step. And the first step is to do something. Don't do nothing. And you have that power to do that, because you're a small business owner. It's like, you're here, you're part of the chamber. You can make a difference in the community. And so I'm here only to give you a little thought, a little like intro to why you're here, and to applaud you for being here. But just know what your why is. What is it for you and your business, where you are, whether it's your family, whether it's a friend, whether it's, you want to be a good neighbor to your business here in Renton or wherever you are. Like, you want to do good stuff. And by doing good stuff and doing what's right, you're going to understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion for your business to grow, to blossom, to connect with your communities. Because guess what? They're not going to want to work with you if you don't understand them, right? I go where I feel comfortable. I go where I'm welcomed. I go where someone understands me. But if you treat me bad, I'm not going to you. Or if you don't at least show some empathy, I'm not going to come to you. You're not going to get my business, right? So I think it's really important that you take this step wherever you are to learn as much as you can, because we all have a responsibility. And you should ask yourself, what is my responsibility to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and leading this work for my company, my organization, my business? What is my responsibility? And write that down, and then do it. And come back to it. Say, did I do what I said I was responsible for? And then the other thing I would say to you is, Whatever you're doing, what is your, like, I'm doing it for what? Like, why am I doing it? You know, like, I know I'm doing it, I'm doing this, but why? Like, how is this impacting my business? Like, how is this helping me? And then the last thing I would say is, you know, embed it into everything that you're doing so it doesn't feel like another thing, but it just is part of who you are that makes you this great business. Like, it's just who you are. Like, it's the essence of you. The reason I love the Seahawks and the reason why I went to the Seahawks is for a couple of reasons. The brand is huge. There's a brand associated to it that already feels inclusive, right? Like, it already, you see it, you see yourself represented. You see it, you see yourself. You just do. I want to do that inside the organization. I want the inside to be a reflection of the outside. I want to blend those two. And a brand is important. And I only want to be connected to a brand that I can be proud of, that I know means business. If they don't, I don't want to be part of it. I don't care how great the brand looks. Like, you got to be serious about this. And so I ask you to be here and be serious about it. Take it seriously. You're here, listen, do something with it. Even if you pick one thing that any of us, the panelists after me, whatever they say, pick one thing to do, one thing that I may have said that inspired you, take it, use it, connect with me on LinkedIn. I am a huge connector. Like, it's because I don't do this alone. It's hard. And it's great to have a community of people that care about this work. And I'm happy to share the things that I've learned along the way that will help you grow and be better within your business, like better business people and more inclusive and just for all, you know? So anyway, I know I've spoken probably longer than I was supposed to, but I really appreciate you inviting me to be part of this. Like, I'm happy to talk anytime about my journey or give tips on what you can do, because this is hard stuff. Like, it is really, really hard. I carried the weight. I felt like for the first time in all these years, like, I did this work for everybody. Like, I did this because in the spirit of inclusion. And for the first time, it felt personal to me. I was holding it it felt really personal. Like, this was about my people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this isn't about everybody right now. This is about me. Like, I can see my children. I could see my son walking down the street and that happening to him as a Black boy, young, with autism. Like, I could see him being stopped and not understanding the police's orders. I can see my husband, who's 6'8", walking down the street with a hoodie and running, and someone shooting him for no reason because he's Black. I could see myself in Brianna. I could see myself driving a car being stopped. I could see it. I think about where I am in a different way. And I have that shirt that says, "Moms of Black boys pray a little different." I have that shirt. My friend sent it to me and I'm like, yep, it's true. I pray a little different, you know?
All right, I was wondering, first of all, so much of what you've shared truly resonates with me, but something really jumped out for me, and that's when you said, you were sharing, know what your why is in your business. And I just recently joined the board of the Renton Regional Community Foundation in last month, and we're going through a strategic planning process. And that's where we are. As a matter of fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, our executive director, Leanne Moss, is in the audience. But that's one of the things that we're grappling with now, is the why.
Right.
And that's a big thing.
It's a
And you've
big
worked with
thing.
so many different organizations, and I was just wondering, anything that you would be willing to share, from the experience of the organizations you've worked with, some of the elements that went into their why that might be helpful for us to think about.
Wow. You know what? I'll tell you, like, it's kind of interesting. My very first meeting where we have a DEI council at the Seahawks, right? They started this up right before I came, and I met with them, and that was the first question I asked them. I'm like, tell me your why. Tell me what your why is. Like, what is the reason you decided to fill out the application and interview to be part of a DEI council? Like, what's your why? Because if you can't explain to me, like, even why you're doing it, then you should not be doing it. We all have a why for this area. And some don't, maybe because they don't know. But if you stepped up and said, I'm going to be doing this, know that why. Because, and so some of the things, you know, I kind of look at it like I can pull those whys out and I can almost make it like our guiding principles that we refer back to. Like, okay, are we making this a better place to work? Because that was a why. Like, is that what are we doing that? Are we hearing what the people need? Are we hearing it? Are we doing it? Is it informing our strategy? Like the things we're listening to, is that informing what we're doing, the right things? Like we're doing what's right? We go back and we can check on all of those things as our guiding principles before we even start to move forward. I need to know from the Seahawks. I need to know from my leadership team. Why is this important to you? You know, you hear a lot about like the business case, like you got to know the business case, like back to basics is what I call it. I feel like we know the business case. I feel like we know that. But you personally, I may not know why it's important for you. I know why it's important for business. But I think it's important to get to the individual reasons before you can get to anything bigger. I really feel strongly about that. And that's what I've done with the Seahawks. I've taken them, I've started them with the why. And then I found out what those things were, and I've implemented them into my strategy planning in terms of what are those big things. And then I prioritize it. These are the why. What's the prioritization of the why? You know, in order, like, is it this first? Is it this first? Like, what is it? And then what for why? Like, what are you doing it for? Like, what are you doing it for? You gotta always ask that, you know, like, what am I doing this for and why am I doing it? And if you can't answer it, then you shouldn't be doing it. Because a lot of times what happens is you end up doing a bunch of stuff and you're like, it's just stuff. It's like falls flat because it doesn't have any impact to anything. So anyway, those are some of the things that I've done, Benita, that have helped me, and just kind of starting out that way. And then I kind of figure out like where people are in the spectrum based off of those questions. And then I meet them where they are.
That's amazing. And again, I echo. I want to say my 2 cents, and I also want to, Ashley, just give you a chance to key up any questions that may be out there. But I'd like to take a look at it from the why to a different spin to that, because many of us are here in the audience for the most part because we have passion behind DEI, because we understand, we may not have clarity about what our why is, but we know that it's important and it's our passion. So how do you, if you're affiliated, I mean, you were with an organization who understood and actually had DEI professionals, but how do you go about it if you're not affiliated with an organization that doesn't think that it's important, or you don't present, you know, you're an ally, but you're not a person of color, or even like in my case, you know, I'm a person of color, but I don't present Black per se. How do you go about trying to win over advocates to really demonstrate that return on investment or that importance?
That's a great question, Sean. And I would say many people are in places, they're here because of the passion, right? Many people are here because of the passion, or because they believe they are allies, or they want to be, but they don't even know what that looks or feels like. Like, I've heard people say, I'm an ally. And I'm like, well, what does that look like to you? Like, how do you know you're an ally? Like, what do you do to say that you're an ally? Here's your test. Here's your test. I've told people this. I'm like, you're an ally if when you're in the room and someone says something and you have to tell me that story later, and you know that you can tell me. So if you're in the room and something is said and you're like, I got to tell Karen this later. Will you want to tell me this? Or will you be like, I can't tell Karen this because I didn't speak up. I didn't say anything. I let this be said, whatever the case might be. A true ally will know they are representing me when I'm not in that room. That's an ally. They're representing me. They are representing someone of difference, no matter what it is, no matter who it is. But afterwards, they can go tell that person, this is what I said. This is how I represent it. I don't care if you have the title or you don't, but if you have passion and wherever you are, wherever you sit, you have an obligation and responsibility to step up and speak out and be an ally in the right ways, and to educate yourself, and not to just seek people of difference to educate you, but do the work yourself. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, don't be, because we'll know if it's coming from a good place. People will know it's coming from a good place. Whether it's somebody with a disability, whether it's somebody from the LGBTQ community, if you ask somebody and you're asking them with the most positive of intention, then we're gonna know that. You will know that, right? You'll know that it's with goodness and it's not with negative intent because of how you approached it, right? So I don't know if that answered your question, Sean, but hopefully a little bit did.
Ashley, oh,
Go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to ask Ashley if anything came through.
Yep, we had one question come through. It seems like a two-part question. Give us an interesting story about the Seahawks, pretty please. Are there good examples of what the Seahawks are doing to support DEI work?
They hired me. So I started literally, this is my 5th week. So I don't have anything really great other than the fact that I feel very blessed. I'll tell you, like, a good story is just my whole process to get here. I wasn't looking to leave. I had a great career in Alaska. Aviation industry is amazing. Working with pilots was fascinating. And so I think that, they really did a good job. They did a good job hiring a person with the expertise to come in to help impact change. And they were serious about it because they have me reporting directly to the president. It's directly to him. It is not buried within the organization deep, which is where a lot of our positions sit sometimes. And that spoke to me. In addition to all the amazing people that I get to work with, it's an amazing environment to work in with incredibly passionate and inclusive people. And they make it easy to do this work, but everybody has opportunity no matter where you go, no matter how happy people are, there's opportunity everywhere. What else, Ashley?
We had another question come through. Can you please recommend how to reduce unconscious bias in the workplace?
Yeah, mitigating unconscious bias it's so interesting because, unconscious bias, it's those things that happen and you're just like, did that just happen? Did they just say that? Like, it's one of those things, right? It's being aware that it exists, right? There's like 8 most common biases that are used, and some of them are more frequent than others. Like, I would say, like, there's a halo horns effect, right? So what that means is this one comes up so much. So yeah, so Karen had an issue, and before you even say the issue, it's like, not Karen again. She had an issue again. She always has this problem. So it's not giving people an opportunity to reset, right? It's like you have that experience of them because of something that happened whenever ago and you never let it go. So what you do is you have to be aware that it's happening. I literally, because we all have unconscious bias, I literally will stop myself in a sentence and go, wait a second, I have a bias and I have to check myself. And I do it all the time. And so it's understanding and recognizing that it's happening and then stopping it and disrupting it. And sometimes you have to do that most of the time, it's someone else doing it. And you have to stop them and correct it. I've had people correct me. They're like, Karen, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that did just happen. So it's really understanding it and disrupting it. That's the only way. And it's in everything and understanding where it shows up, like in who you invite to a meeting, who you hire, who you work with the most, think about it. Think about it. They're probably just like you because we understand ourselves. Break the cycle. Anything else, Ashley?
I'm trying to.
I think some more questions are coming in, but I think we need to table some of these for now.
Yes.
And move on to our next panelist. We'll try to address some of these at the end. If I know that Karen may have to go off to a basketball game, so she may not be able to make it to the very end of it, but we will address it or go forth from there. So I would like to, at this point, just thank you so much for your insights. I mean, I felt like I was sitting right next to you on the couch in the lobby, very engaging and very insightful. And just pass it over to Benita for the final word and comment and transition. So thanks again.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for taking time away from your family to be with us, even, especially all those many miles away. And we hope that you'll come back and join us at a future community conversation. Thank you so much. So we're moving to the next part of our conversation tonight, and we're really fortunate to have three incredible leaders, CEOs of three chambers in our area. Our own Diane Dobson, who's CEO of the Renton Chamber, Zenobia Harris, who's CEO of the Kent Chamber, and Andrea Ray, who's a CEO at the Seattle Southside Chamber. And I'm going to ask each of them when they begin to speak to say a little bit about them, introduce themselves briefly. And then really, what we asked them to address was to think about how does diversity and inclusion work impact small businesses and chamber organizations. What lessons have you learned that you can share with us from the business that have been learned from the businesses that you support? What has been your experience? I'm going back to Karen's presentation, but what's been your experience and how they begin to really formulate and articulate the why for them? Not just I'm doing this because it might look good on my Facebook page, but the real why. Before I'm going to start with Diane. Before I turn this over to Diane, I really need to share something with all of you from my heart. There was an incident in downtown Renton this past weekend. And the incident involved an Asian man and a white woman. The white woman made some very racist and unkind remarks. This has been archived forever, as there was a recording made and it's now posted on YouTube. But Diane arrived before, as this interchange was going on, doing one of her normal good things. I think she was taking a million truffles somewhere to deliver them to someplace. And by this time, a lot of people had come out of their businesses to view this exchange going back and forth. And a couple of the business owners asked Diane to remove the woman, to help her leave, because it was just escalating. And so those of you who know Diane as I do, know that she immediately stood up to the request and went and approached the woman and tried to coax and coerce her to leave, say, hey, I've got truffles over here, come help me with the truffles. And the man who posted the video did say that, that Diane knew her. He said that that she's friends with Diane. I'm not sure if she is or not. I didn't ask Diane that question, but that Diane was passing by and graciously helped this woman named Robin to leave. So that was no surprise to me. That's Diane. But what was a surprise to me is the repercussions that Diane has experienced. People have lumped her with the woman whose behavior was inappropriate and racist. She has received hate mail. She's received suggestions that she resign from the chamber as the CEO. And I have to tell you, this hurts me. It hurts my heart deeply. Diane would probably not bring this up, but I just felt compelled to. And I would ask you this, in this era of smartphones where we can record things and post them on Facebook, we get a lot of information we never got before. But I would also ask you to remember two things. One is that it's like there's an African proverb that says, until the lions start writing history, the glory of the hunt will always go to the hunters. So whoever posts has the first and last word on what the truth was. And I want us all to be increasingly aware, because this is part of our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, to be increasingly aware of being sucked into the single story. To know that, as one of my mentors always said to me, there's always three truths: my truth, your truth, and the truth. And that as part of our task to really get to all of the truths so that we can then be critical thinkers and form our own decisions. It also reminds me of another proverb that says that there is no good deed that goes unpunished. And here we have someone who has made it her life passion to contribute to our community in so many ways. And it hurts my heart that she has been lambasted in this way. So I just felt a need to share that. And as you know, in these conversations, nothing is off the table. So I just wanted to put that out there and just share with you where I sit on this series of events. With that, it is my great honor to introduce my colleague, my friend, one of my champions, Diane Dobson, CEO of the Renton Chamber.
Thank you, Benita. As Benita said, I'm the CEO at the Renton Chamber, and I have been in Renton my entire life. I've been the CEO at the Chamber for the past year, and I was hired into. I've been at the Chamber for about 3 years, but I was hired into my position about a year ago, and then COVID struck, and our world changed, and it desperately changed in the business community and in the nonprofit community with which we serve. And there were a series of I'm gonna focus on 2020. That's when I'm serving in this capacity. There were a series of events and social justice and things like Karen shared before, that these things have been happening throughout history, and we were all a captive audience at once, and we saw these things, and we were in a position no one could look away. And at the Chamber, how did we respond to these issues? We took time for our team, and we stopped, and we our ambassadors, we have a team of ambassadors and champions and Chamber champions, and it was business off the table, and we talked feelings, we talked emotions, we gave a safe space for people to have the conversation, and very vulnerable and conversation. And our board, our next board meeting, we did the same thing. There was no business more important than addressing what was happening in the world around us. we convened a group of individuals from the community of, I would have said plethora of individuals, but I love Karen's term, a mosaic of individuals of, of, of different genders and races and beliefs. And we asked question of, what does hope and justice look like to you? And we had very raw conversation about, again, about feelings and about what that looked like. And from that point forward at the chamber, we have consulted. Something that was important to every single person there that we took away, and we've made a list, if you will, that it is important for us to honor each item that those individuals brought forward. And we're addressing those. They are community leaders and their opinions are respected. And we're working from the chamber to try to bring about opportunities and resources and leverage the resources that we have available to us at the chamber to help move the needle of change. We have had a wonderful opportunity to consult with Sean Greenlee as a DEI consultant with our board, and Miss Benita Horn and Zenobia Harris, and a team of other individuals, and are bringing these resources in to have workshops and trainings and those takeaways. But I think the most important part is we're receptive and open to having the conversations and addressing some of those conversations that may be uncomfortable. But without those conversations, we won't find solutions. We're trying to be honest with our approach and receptive to the process with which we travel. And I say that this is a learning and growing process. And with the group that we're working with, Rock Project Management and the team there, and there's not a meeting or an event that we have or a conversation that we have that we're not taken away. I'm not taken away in growth. And I am respectful to myself to give myself the grace that there is opportunity for growth. The incident this weekend that Benita has referenced, it has rocked the world in Renton, if you will, with many individuals, that there was a lot of hurt and pain. Through social media, we see that outpouring, I respect that there's a lot of lashing out as a result of the pain that's involved there, and it really makes evident to me is the importance of those conversations and having those conversations to understand. For the individual, and in referenced in the post, it says her friend is Diane Dobson. This is a gal that lived in the neighborhood, and she's moved out of the neighborhood 10 years ago. And would I have intervened if I didn't know the individual? Probably would have. If I was asked for help, I would have. Not knowing the history of what transpired to get to that point, it was alarming to me on Monday when I saw the videos up until that point, and it became more evident to me of why this is important. And there's so much work yet to be done, and I look forward to the businesses and providing opportunities and using those resources to walk the path together.
Sorry to jump in. I feel like compelled to at this point because I do want to address something that was thrown out there. First off, thank you for sharing your perspective. And I do want to, assure everybody out there that the Chamber is trying to provide this different perspective, and it is not any intention to control the conversation or the narrative on this platform. And one thing I want to say is that we do want to keep this conversation here a little focus on the objectives of DEI and supporting the business and hear from the Chamber of Commerce leaders, but also let everyone know on this call that we're not looking past this. And the Chamber nor Diane tolerate racism at all in any format. And we are going to be, we'll share with you what we have been doing, but at the same time, we are going to provide a platform, a community platform to talk specifically about this in the near future, a town hall, if you will. So that we are able to hear from all the different voices in our Renton Chamber community, to be able to share with what the Chamber is doing or what we think we're doing, and at the same time be vulnerable and take opportunities as to what we can continue to do for. So I really don't want to hang on this topic as much, if I can say that, knowing that we are continuing to address this, and we will, address it going forward.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to welcome our next panelist, Zenobia Harris, who is CEO of the Kent Chamber.
Wonderful. Thank you, Benita. Ms. Benita, thank you so much. And hello to everyone that is here. I am Zenobia Harris, CEO of the Kent Chamber of Commerce. I've been at this chamber, well, this is my only chamber, but I've been at this chamber for 2 years now. And when I started this job, I was and still am the only Black woman to lead a chamber of commerce. So here in the state of Washington, we have upwards of 150 chambers. I am the only Black woman to be leading a chamber. So when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I am living that on a daily basis. One of my very first conferences as a chamber executive, there were about 400 people there. And I was asked more than 5 times if I knew what time the food was coming out, if I knew what the next step was going to be on the agenda, if I knew where the restrooms were. And I say all that to say they just assumed that I was there as help and not there as a leader. When folks did realize that I was a leader, it was, oh, you're with the chamber, who is your CEO? Well, that would be me, right? So I have these lived experiences, and this is why this work is important to me. But prior to coming to the Kent Chamber of Commerce, I'm a certified diversity professional. So I was going into colleges because I had spent 10 years at the University of Phoenix, working with faculty and working with students. But I thought it was important to get educated on diversity and inclusion because our population at the school was very diverse. And I felt as though the students of color did not have a voice. We did not even have a Black student union at an organization, a college that had graduated 1 million people. And I would say about 45% of those people are Black people and people of color. And so I was walking into the chamber with my diversity hat on. But I didn't see a space for that. So I would, just to be transparent, I did not come into the chamber to talk to businesses about diversity because as a Black woman coming in, you're new in the position, you don't really have any, street cred, right, in the community. So I couldn't come in like, we should talk about diversity. I came in focused on working with businesses. And then, like Ms. Karen said, 2020 hit. And it was very hard to come to work as a Black chamber CEO where I couldn't even say Black Lives Matter, even though they do. I could not post that on my Facebook page. It was hard for us to say or put together a statement because the face of the chamber is me. And when that message is coming from a person of color, you have to be very careful at how that message is brought out and how you go about telling that story, right? And so here I am just living my best life, doing the best that I can do to make sure that businesses would succeed in 2020. And in March, I was laying off staff. By July, we were Zoom bombed. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but a Zoom bomb, it can be a variety of things. Mine's happened to be a racist Zoom bomb. In my 40 plus years, I have never been called the N-word. I have never seen some of the images that I was exposed to. And yet and still, After that happened, I had to get back on the phone. I had to continue to work, and I had to go as though my day didn't matter. And then I went home, and my husband said, "Well, are you taking the rest of the week off?" "No, I'm going to work tomorrow." And he said, "That's a dangerous place for you to be." Not, he was worried about me, physical danger, a mental danger for you to be. You have to take time away. And so at that time, just like Diane, it's important when you want to get a message out that you convene people in the community, you convene a variety of different voices. And so we put together this, I did 2 meetings, and they're more like a town hall style. And I said, we need to start a diversity, equity, inclusion committee for the chamber to make sure that top down in all of our committees and all the work that we're doing, we're looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we all know, no matter where you are on the spectrum, and if this is your first time hearing this, when you are working in an organization or you're leading an organization and that organization is diverse to the best of your ability, you are going to see an impact, a positive impact on your bottom line because you have multiple people and their perspectives coming in. So by diversity, take out of your mind color diversity. I am talking about age, millennial, backgrounds, education, things like that. So making sure that we understand, kind of diversity in its totality. I brought together these people. We now have this committee, and we're actually doing some really great work. So that's why diversity and equity inclusion is important to me. We responded. I don't have the luxury or the privilege most times to say how I feel as a Black leader in the community. And that's because I lead a chamber. And as a chamber exec, you are a spokesperson for 500 people that you barely see, right? You see them every now and again. So I have to be very careful in my messaging, but I do want to make clear, and I think all of the chambers involved want to make sure that the business community understands the power of diversity. And in our world, the power of diversity is your footprint in the community. What are you doing to impact your community in a positive way? Have you looked at the way that you're hiring people? Is a bachelor's degree necessary for this position? Now that, COVID-19 hit, and I've lost people in COVID-19. So I have a funeral tomorrow via Zoom. And so I know that there's been some negatives, but the positive with COVID-19 is now people respect the power of an online meeting and respect that their employees can work from home and they can have 3 kids, homeschool, and get the job done. That is because of COVID-19. That is a positive. And so for us, as business leaders, we just want to make sure that as they're transitioning, as businesses are transitioning, we provide them with the tools to keep their employees safe and keep them feeling like they are, valued. Per se. So that's really my work. That's my story. And I did want to say, I think we started off and someone said it's too hard to do this. Oh, for Facebook likes. This work, DEI work, is too hard to do for Facebook likes, right? You can just download a cat video for that. Do not get into this work because you think it looks good. This is hard work. And this is great, it's great work, but this is actually hard work. So I commend anybody and everybody actually on this call kind of taking that next step. And I appreciate Diane. I won't pontificate on how I know, she is getting a bad rap with this situation. Sean, I'm sorry, I just have to say that. Diane is my sister in chamber, and we've had a conversation. I trust that she has a good heart, and that's exactly what I told her. If you do this work and you make a mistake, the first thing with diversity is you have to give people grace. And you have to figure out how this happened or why this happened before you pass judgment, if you really want to be an inclusive person. So I appreciate you today, Ms. Benita. I appreciate being here with all of you on the line.
Okay, I'm sorry for the pause, trying to figure out how to get myself unmuted. Thank you, Zenobia. Thank you so much. And so again, a great honor to introduce Andrea Ray, the CEO of the South Seattle Chamber. I told her I wasn't even aware if there was a South Seattle Chamber. So tell us, not only introduce yourself, Andrea, but tell us a little bit about what cities you represent.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Benita, and thank you to Diane and the Renton Chamber, and for everybody who's joining us to have this conversation this evening. It's really an honor to be here in this space with all of you. Andrea Ray, Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce. We are a regional chamber, and we serve Southwest King County. So that is, south of Seattle, White Center, Burien, SeaTac, Tukwila, Des Moines, Normandy Park. And as a regional chamber serving Southwest King County, I've been in this position now for about 5 years. I was the executive director at an organization called Discover Burien for a few years prior than that. So I've been doing economic development and community engagement work now for 9 years, which I have to remind myself, I still think of this as my new job because before I did this work, I worked as a production manager at Seattle Opera and did a lot of work in the performing arts industry. And so that's my background. And, for us, the DEI work, is pretty, again, it's hard, but for me, it was pretty simple. Southwest King County is one of the most diverse areas, of our state. The Tukwila School District, alone speaks over 80 languages, and 49% of the population, speaks a language other than English, right? So we are very quickly becoming a majority community, and again, like Ms. Karen said, does our inside look like our outside? And when I was hired and was looking at the strategic plan and the vision for the organization, I quickly, realized that the inside of our organization did not look like the outside, and that we needed to create the space and to devote the time and the energy to ensure that we were becoming a more inclusive, anti-racist organization, and how that was important for us internally, because chambers of commerce really truly are catalysts and conveners for change. We convene businesses together to create opportunities. We are, create the opportunities ourselves, and so we have a certain responsibility. So, I think there's that commercial, I answer to a higher authority, right? We do in a lot of ways. There's what's legal and best practice, and then there's what chambers, should be doing so that we are elevating that work and the conversation for all within our business community. And so, as a convener and a catalyst and a creator for change and opportunity, we really wanted to be able to be that guiding light. And so when, Karen talked about your why, that was very much our why. We wanted to lead by example, to be able to offer those resources, to our small business community, to really continue to be a resource for our minority and refugee, business community here in Southwest King County. So, are we, through the process? No. Again, this is work that continues, and will forever, continue, because there's always that feedback loop, right? Becoming an anti-racist organization, is about action. I think, Karen talked about, step up and, speak up, right? And how important that is, to create that feedback loop. So there's definitely steps along the process that, I'm happy to share, lessons learned, from our journey. And just so grateful for, my colleagues, for Diane and for Zenobia to, be our partner, in this work. It's important to have, have a team, absolutely. So happy to be here and be part of this conversation and share, how we can be a resource to continue to elevate and expand this work, throughout our communities and throughout our small business community, especially.
Thank you. Thank you. Ashley, let us know if there are any questions that come up in the chat box that our speakers are being asked to address. I would like to you know, I would like to just throw this out and, you know, ask any of our panelists to address it. You know, I really appreciated your talking about, you know, some of the compelling reasons for you to look at diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, to advocate for your members, for whom that's for many, for whom that is um, a, 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 a strategy of not only success but of livelihood. And just ask you from your experiences and conversations with members, you know, any lessons learned that would help anyone in the audience who's maybe looking at this and trying to decide, you know, what's a good first step, how to get started. You know, what what would be a good first step, and what have been some of the resources that have been helpful?
Zenobia, do you want to take that one first? I saw you unmute yourself, and then I can follow up.
Yeah, no, I was asking for permission to unmute, but yeah, so I think the first step is to recognize or understand what the issue is, right? I hear a lot of the times, oh, we don't have that problem in my community. No, it's a problem in every community. So here's step one, it is a problem. Step two now would be for you to convene people and go to your trusted messengers. I went directly to the city of Kent. I happen to sit on the Human Services Commission. So I asked them, can you connect me with organizations that are helping this population and someone that can maybe translate some information? There were grant information going out, and as a Chamber of Commerce, I sent everything out in English. And after a while, I thought, I wonder if I have a Spanish speaking business that needs this work or that needs this application. And so you have to be able to reach out and ask for help. No one has all of the answers. And so again, creating this community of people that you can go to and find yourself a trusted messenger to partner with to get your message across, I think would be one step. The other thing I wanted to say is when I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce with my work with the University of Phoenix. And I went to my first chamber event just as a chamber member. And I was, again, it was myself and my husband, the only Black people in the room. And I felt like I didn't fit in anywhere. I wasn't high level. I didn't really own a business that I was marketing. And so when I became a chamber CEO, I said, if anyone walks through this door, they are not to feel like they are the only one or they are the newbie. We're gonna bum rush them to the door. I am a hugger and I love this industry because you can just hug and nobody cares. There's no HR issues there. So I was a hugger. I'm high-fiving when you come in the door. I know your name. I know your family's name. And I think that's important. People wanna be acknowledged. And if you acknowledge people just by saying hello, welcome to my space, you've done enough.
I think that's great. I think, yeah, absolutely. Fundamentally, you know, people want to be seen, right? And they want to be seen and accepted, you know, for who they are. And that means that you're creating a welcoming space where people can be, you know, who they really are, right? So I would absolutely agree with that. It's and that starts with the company culture and, you know, creating that company culture of welcomeness. And where you take the time to really know and see people, you know, for who they are and to hear people, right? Because people want to be seen and they want to be heard. That's so true. Fundamental piece of creating, you know, positive company culture. And so absolutely 100% agree with that. And that's kind of part of what you were talking about, that assessment phase. So recognize that everybody has bias. And recognize that that there is an issue, right? So then do an audit, right? So like I said, you know, I did my audit. You know, this is the demographics of my community. This is the demographics of my board, right? This is the demographics of my staff, right? You know, is that linking up, or are there disparities there? And how can we find ways to repair those disparities? And then also just remembering, you know, that disparities come from despair, right? And that a lot of this, you know, DEI work, you know, is also, you know, kind of trauma theory, right? So when we start having these conversations, when we convene our small groups, you know, as you mentioned, Zenobia, which is so important, you know, recognizing that that is kind of space where that work does happen. So I would absolutely 100% agree with everything that you said, and just echo how important it is to do that assessment and that audit, and just create that welcoming, safe space.
Thank you. Thank you. Diane, is there anything that you want to add to that?
You know, in addition to that, it really became apparent to us, and I know Andrea and Zenobia experienced this as well, is the resources that are out there for businesses, in not just English as second language businesses, but when we were pushing out information from King County or the state on grants and resources that were available, there was a definite disconnect between the businesses that are English as second language, that are BIPOC, people of color, and women-owned businesses, in receiving and achieving that information as some of the other businesses. And so it's therein, and like I think it was Andrea that said, you know, sometimes some of these things are trauma stemmed, and you get the improvements from realizing the deficits that are there. It is, to me, that is a blaring example of where we can take our awareness, our observations, our experiences with our businesses, and we can then champion them to the county level, the state's level, the federal level, and be that voice for those businesses, and the community to help bridge those gaps. We have now seen information coming out from King County. They are doing a fantastic job at delivering resources in a multitude of languages. Business Impact Northwest is one of the nonprofits that was contracted through a number of the East Side cities to work with business owners in technical assistance and in processing grants and applications. And they too said that they had challenges in having businesses connect with them. And so it brought out the importance of having those connections with those trusted messengers, and developing that communication, or facilitating that communication with those powers that could support, and getting that information out there.
I'll just echo another thing, because we have so many refugee populations, you know, within Southwest King County. And when a lot of that information was coming from the government, it was met with some skepticism, right? You know, people had fled their country because it was oppressive governments and oppressive regimes, right? So then when the government was saying, no, please just fill out this paperwork, give me your social security number and your address and your UBI number, and we'll send you a check. It was like, whoa, right? You know, so understanding, like I said, you know, where people are coming from is so important to this work, and especially for our minority and refugee, you know, businesses.
Thank you. Thank you. Sean, any thoughts bubbling up for you? I don't think we have any questions in the, oh, let's see. No, we do. Okay. I'm looking for first steps in how to achieve diversity in a nonprofit leadership. We are Lutheran-sponsored coffee shop brew pub. The Lutherans are not known for diversity, and yet the population that comes to Luther's table is very diverse. How do we go about creating a more diverse leadership?
Like
panel.
Well, I'm thinking like leadership. So changing the folks that are there leading the organization. I have done some work with Luther's Table a while back, so I hope it's the one in Renton. Changing leadership, that's like a larger conversation, but the people that are in the room, if you have something that looks like them, so take a look at your signage, take a look at things like that, so that when they come in, they feel like they're a part of that space, even though the people that may be serving or leading that organization do not fit what they look like. At least create a space where they feel warmed and welcome. But at the end of the day, if you take stock in your leadership and they are just not diverse and that's what you want to do, unfortunately, you have to make some hard decisions and you have to just bite the bullet. There is no shortage of people of color that are highly qualified for any job that you possibly could post.
I would absolutely echo that. You know, we had the same, you know, issue, you know, when we were casting shows at Seattle Opera, right? You know, it's like, you know, well, you know, where are we going to find the cast for Porgy and Bess, right? You know, we just did a casting call, but we don't have enough African-American, you know, singers that, you know, came to the audition. Well, the problem is, you know, you're not creating the right platform, right? You know, you need to go to where they are and then invite them, right? You know, would be first and foremost, right? So if you are not having luck with just, you know, doing the invitations and hoping and encouraging people of color to come, then I would absolutely say, you know, you need to look at your trusted other community leaders that are, you know, leading in that space, and you can lean on them and just ask the questions and then go to them and invite them into that space, right? So the short answer is, like Zenobia said, people of color are interested and qualified and wanting to serve, and it's our responsibility as leaders wanting to create more diversity in our leadership that we seek them out.
You know, sometimes assumptions get made based on the environment. I know when I've done helped organizations conduct, for example, environmental assessments, and you know, where we ask the question, you know, regardless of who walked through the door, what artifacts would they see in your place of business that that would make them feel welcome, that would let them know that people who look like them are welcome here. You know, I can't tell you how many board retreats where the walls are lined with all the past presidents who are all white men. And, you know, I look around the room and there may be, you know, maybe one, maybe two people of color on the board. And this is the image that they're surrounded by every time they come to meet. But it is more than just simply changing the visual amenities. And you know, I just really reinforce what both I heard Zenobia and Andrea say. You know, are we looking in the right places? Are we using all of our resources? It's not a matter of kind of out with the old, in with the new, but how do we begin to expand our leadership in a way that is representative of the community? I know that a lot of entities in this area, Renton Technical College, City of Renton, you know, Karen mentioned Seahawks, you know, Boeing, many others have been quite successful over the years, but it has taken consistency, it's taken time, energy, effort, and it's taken more than a one-shot approach. You know, I always say, you know, the time to begin recruiting is not when you have an open position.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that, you know, it might take asking someone several times before, you know, they come on board, right? I mean, I think about, I said no to this job twice before I said yes, right? You know, so I do think that, you know, being persistent is also important.
Okay, so we've got a couple more questions. One person shared that they had their location decorate for Black History Month, and they advertised in publications of read by people who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The question is this: what role do you think white people should play in educating white people in anti-racism and addressing their continued white-centeredness? So what role do you think white people should play in educating white people in anti-racism and addressing their continued white-centeredness? Who'd like to take that on from start with that one?
I can start, unless Diane, you want to start. I feel like I've been talking a lot. But I mean, I think, I think Karen, mentioned it too, it's really important for, us as white people to do the work, right? And it starts with us as individuals. And I think that, again, removing our bias, doing our homework, and not just leaning on our, BIPOC friends and, colleagues to help, pull us along, or like, oh, well, surely, I'll be corrected, or someone would tell me if I was doing something wrong. No, we need to own that work ourselves and create a space, for that work to happen and that growth and education to happen.
Thank you, Andrea. Any other thoughts on that one?
I would echo Andrea's sentiments, but I would also say that it's really critical that for individuals who are white in doing that work, that we're doing the work that, not that we think is best, but that we learn is best. I think for too long it has been that those that are privileged are deciding the best course for those who are not, for those who are marginalized, and not listening to voices and not hearing feelings, not putting themselves in other people's shoes, or understanding in the best ways that we can. So I think it's very critical that our work is relevant from that position.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And I would just say that your position is probably in the front. And I say that because people tend to listen to people that look like them, sound like them, have the same experiences as them. And so you kind of got to take one for the team, and make sure that you're educated, and make sure that you have a trusted resource. So everyone learns differently. So whether that's you're looking at YouTube videos, or you're reading, or you're going to community meetings, whatever that is, you need an outlet. You need a place where you're getting this information from, to be able to educate yourself, to be able to have these conversations. But I would say you have a role, you have an important role. My daughter does it all the time. She'll ask someone else something, and I'm like, you kind of know I know how to do that, right? But she's looking for someone that she feels is a trusted messenger. And so putting yourself in a position where you have folks that you can go out to and you can lean on is really important. But again, like they said, Andrea and Diane, you have to do the work. And I think it's it's very difficult just as a Black person. If, my day starts at 5:45 in the morning, by 10 o'clock, I've already been microaggressed against, 6 or 7 times. So by the time you ask me to touch my hair at 9:30 in the morning, I've already dodged 10 different microaggressions. And so now my response to you is going to be a little heavy, and you're not going to understand that, because you're like, oh my God, it's 9 in the morning. I just said your hair was nice. I want to touch it, right? But keeping in mind that people that live with these issues or microaggressions, that's happening all day. And so unfortunately to you, it seems like you're coming off a little harsh, Zenobia. Take a step back and say, you know what, maybe something happened earlier in the day that this was maybe not the right time to ask that question. So
your responses remind me, oh gosh, over 20 years ago, when I attended for the first time the 2-day Undoing Institutional Racism workshop that is put on by the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. And I was fortunate because one of their co-founders, Ron Chisholm, was one of the co-facilitators in that session. And I remember on the first day, one of the things he shared is that, he said, people come to these workshops and then they get all excited, especially white people, they get all excited about going and doing anti-racist work. And they want to come over here to Ron is a Black man. They want to come over here to our communities and roll up their sleeves and do the work. And what I tell them is, go back home, do the work in your community, at your dinner table, in your family, and it's really taking it, what he was saying, I think, really it emphasizes what you said, Zenobia, is that people tend to listen to people who look like them, who already has that quote credibility factor. There are also a burgeoning number of organizations, such as the group called CARW, which is a coalition of anti-racist whites. They've been meeting for over 30 years, and it's a group of white people who are working together to expand their consciousness on anti-racism. So there are coalitions, affinity groups out there that are also resources. Okay, here's another question. Can you please discuss microaggression to individuals who may not be familiar with the term? Zenobia, I think you mentioned that. You already had 10 by 10 o'clock.
So microaggression is just, it's the softest, prettiest little thing you will ever meet. And I say that because I think most times the people have really good intentions. I have great hair. I know how to pick a hairstyle for a occasion. And so, but for me, that's how I kind of identify. But to the other person, I have to give them grace, because on Monday I look one way and on Tuesday I look another. And so you can almost say I kind of invite that question to be asked, because the way that I change, the way that I change my hair. But I use that one because it's very relevant. Or walking into a room and just making an assumption. I know everyone's kind of been in a Target, and you may go, oh, can you tell me? And it's just maybe they have a red shirt on, right? And the person's like, dang, I got a red shirt on. That doesn't mean I work here at Target. So they're just these small little things. And I would say that before you speak, you just want to take a minute to think how it's going to impact the other person. It really just takes a second, because your microaggressions kick in when you make these fast decisions. And even with, as businesses, as you're hiring and you're going through applications and you're like, oh, Zenobia, that's going to come with a lot of problems. Oh, here's a name I can't pronounce. I'm going to put this one to the side. They may need some special, like interpreter or whatever the case may be. So these implicit or these biases are they're fast and they're quick. So if we slow down before we make a decision or ask a question, I think it would help us. But I microaggress against people all day, every day. I do, and I'm a professional. And because I'm going at it with a good heart, but I just don't know. And it always comes down to, I didn't take the time to figure out, number one, to answer my own question, and number two, understand how it's going to make that person feel if I ask that question. COVID-19 has been one of those things where I've never really been a person of privilege, but I am a person of privilege right now. I still have a job. My husband has a job. My immediate family is healthy. And so this has been going on a year. I have like this guilt of privilege, and I've probably given more money to nonprofit organizations in the last 6 months than I have in the last 6 years, because I don't see how a person can sit with such privilege and not do anything about it. It is amazing to me. And again, I never understood the power of their privilege, or how someone could sit with something so heavy. You have so much and you're not doing anything about it. And by so much, I'm not talking monetary, I'm talking about opportunities. Most of us can pick up the phone and say, hey, Zenobia, I see you have this accounting job open. My sister would be perfect for that, right? Instead of calling your sister, call your sister's best friend's cousin's brother, right? That may be somebody of color. So you got to use your privilege to your advantage. And now I'm rambling because I don't even remember what the question is.
No, I appreciate that. Dr. Daryl Wing Su, who, you're probably all familiar with, has done years of research and actually has published a couple of books on microaggressions. And there's also some of his videos online, but he defines microaggressions as daily, routine, comments, sometimes, or behavior, sometimes verbal, sometimes nonverbal, that convey to the person targeted that they are not welcome here, or that they are the other, or they are excluded. And one of his videos, he shows a video of a white woman who's worked late in a building, a office building, is about to leave work. And when the elevator, she's waiting for the elevator, as the door opens, the only person in the elevator is a Black man. And instead of getting on the elevator, she clutches her necklace and clutches her purse and backs up and walks away. That's a microaggression. People of Asian ancestry say that, daily, routinely, they get asked, where are you from? As though the assumption is that if you visibly appear to have Asian ancestry, you cannot be a US resident. Black people often get, like Zenobia said, often get, can I touch your hair? How come your hair looks this way today and that way? Can I touch your hair? It's like, I can't ever remember going up to a white person and saying, can I touch your hair? But I can't begin to tell you the number of times that question has been asked of me. So sometimes they're behaviors, sometimes, actions, sometimes they're verbal, but what the ultimate impact is the grinding, because it's daily. It's not just once in a while, it's daily. And so, they're depending on what day it is for me, sometimes I may respond graciously and other times not so graciously. It's just, I want to point out that Benny Royce has put a resource in the chat box for BIPOC executive directors to join, to contact Erica Bentley. There's a group called BIPOC ED that is a coalition for BIPOC executive directors. I know in the greater Renton area, there is the Renton-King County Alliance for Justice that is open to all people in Renton who have a passion for working toward racial equity in Renton. And there are probably numerous other entities, and maybe we can begin, if people know of other organizations and resources, to begin to share them so that we can share them with each other. It does help to be in a group of like-minded people. This is not easy work. It's especially not easy work alone. And that's why just even coming together as a group for these discussions is so powerful. So Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you to begin to take us into home base.
All right, thank you. Before I go to home base, I do want to acknowledge one comment that came directly through to me about just the hazardous waste in King County does a great job on reaching out to BIPOC communities. This individual personally does a lot of work translating and culturally adapting the information. So that's a great example of what businesses do. So as we wrap up tonight, I just want to thank everyone for just being here. These are difficult conversations to have, as evidence, whether it's in today's conversation or lead up from events that have happened in the near future. And I really, appreciate the ability to have this, to create this space to have these conversations, and at the same time acknowledge that we're still on this journey, and many of us still say the wrong things, and it's okay. And these topics are very personal and very emotional. So as long as we continue to give grace and continue to try to bring people along this journey, that's one of the best things that we can do, and just lead towards self-awareness. I do want to acknowledge that even I today, as I received some real-time feedback in one of my hard pivots, I was insensitive to some of the audience that were out there. Some of the individuals who came to this conversation today were not expecting the platform which we had set up about talking about the resource towards benefit of small businesses, and came to speak about the recent incident. So, that too is something that just in my quick transition to keep us on track, I, made my commentary, my approach didn't feel good. So I acknowledge that, I apologize for that. And I just want you to know that, our intentions, as many of them are good and intense. So we continue to provide this service, from the Chamber and in collaboration with all these great partners that are out there. And just want to know that this is continuous work that we're doing on a monthly basis. We're providing these platforms and addressing said topics. So you will see coming up here next month, we're planning on at this time to host a conversation on training on courageous conversations. how to have them. And then in April, it's been requested, because we started this back asking what your needs are, how do you look at your own organization internally and do a self-assessment? And then we'll look to advance to other topics such as implicit bias training and resources. I appreciate everyone here, I really do. And I would just ask us, as so many of the speakers so eloquently stated today, is just, what can you do is just do something. Just get started and take action and leverage your passion and try to make sure that we're moving the needle in a positive direction. Thanks again. And unless anyone else has anything else, I appreciate you hanging on. And just know that we're trying to be here to provide us that additional path and clairvoyance going forward. So thanks again.